And you put out a lengthy notes column with Will Salmon about where we stand with a number of teams. And one part that stood out to us was when you got into the Blue Jays and how the Okamoto signing could fit if he does work out at third base. The name that I'm circling in your column was Ernie Clement, superstar in the postseason. But could he be kind of pushed out of a regular starting spot?
Only if they re-sign Bichette, which in my opinion is increasingly unlikely. So if they sign Bichette or Bregman, and I don't know that they're going to do Bregman. Bregman doesn't seem to fit right now for the Blue Jays. But if they re-sign Bichette and you have Okamoto at third, Bichette at second, then where does Ernie Clement play? But I don't see that necessarily happening. I kind of see Okamoto being the third baseman primarily, as long as they believe he can play that position, and he is thought to be at least average there. And then Clement plays second, and the big move, it would seem to me, is Tucker for them, if they can somehow get to a financial point with him that they're comfortable with. So yes, there is a scenario in which Ernie Clement would be at least squeezed for playing time, but it's only, in my opinion, if Bichette comes back.
Okay, Ken, let's talk about another team in the division that used to cover a lot, the Orioles. Are they done? Because they've made some big moves. Pete Alonso and Eflin coming back and Helsley and all these moves that they're making. But are they done? And I think they need to add at least one more starting pitcher to this mix that's a veteran guy that they can trust.
AJ, that's exactly where they are with this. And in that article I wrote with Will, we quoted an executive as saying they view their rotation as adequate. Well, adequate is not necessarily where they want to be. It's not where they want to be. Now, they're in a good spot right now, a much better spot than they were. It's Trevor Rogers, Kyle Bradish, it's Shane Baz, it's Zach Eflin, it's Dean Kramer, right there. That's what you have. And you have Tyler Wells in the mix as well, and some others. Okay. But what you're saying is exactly what they seem to believe, that they need one more that they could fit toward the top of their rotation. So who are we talking about? Framber Valdez or Ranger Suarez are the two leading free agents, both left-handed, both would fit really well in Baltimore. And then the trade possibilities that are out there. Freddie Peralta is one. Edward Cabrera is one, and the Orioles have been linked to him before. And there are others as well, Mackenzie Gore. So I don't know exactly how they're going to get this player or who it's going to be, but they believe that they have still the prospect depth to make another trade for a starting pitcher, even after giving up the 5 players they did for Baz. And then at that point, if they get the next starter, the other starter, then they would be, in their minds, more complete. They'd still like to do some stuff in the bullpen, like every team, it seems. They still would like additional depth in center field if they can find it, but the starter is their primary focus right now.
Let's go to AJ's favorite team, the Cubs. Are they going to be as aggressive as they were last offseason in the sense that they went out and got Kyle Tucker? Is there a move like that? Because clearly they've just shown they're just in on free agents. Unless you're a reliever, they're just in on free agents and they haven't pulled the trigger yet.
Well, from a trade standpoint, Eric, I don't know who the hitter would be to equate with Kyle Tucker from last offseason. I don't know that player is out there, but there are free agents out there. And then the question becomes, okay, Cubs, you're in on everybody. Are you going to sign one of these guys? And remember, last offseason, they were in on Bregman, didn't get him. And they seem to be one of these teams that sets a boundary for where they're willing to spend and will not exceed that. And maybe their boundary is even lower than some other clubs that are in the mix. So you see the names right there. Would some of these players fit for the Cubs? Oh, yes, they would. Mr. Bregman is a guy that they are interested in and would really fit nicely there. They could perhaps move Shaw to second, trade Nico Horner, make Shaw a utility guy. There's a lot of things they could do with Alex Bregman in their mix, but they clearly need one more bat at least, and they can do some other things as well. A starting pitcher is something that they certainly have been looking for. So the Cubs are one of a number of teams, a number of big market teams that we still see out there as not even close to done. I would put the Mets in that category. I would put the Yankees in that category. The Cubs certainly. I don't know that the Dodgers are done, and I don't know that the Phillies are done, particularly if they lose JT Realmuto somehow. So again, there is a lot in play right now, and it's January 6th, and it's surprising to me how much uncertainty there is. But at the same time, as we follow offseason after offseason, maybe we shouldn't be surprised. This seems to be the normal pace.
You forgot the Red Sox, Ken, that haven't done much.
I did forget the Red Sox.
In the
yes.
free agent market.
traded.
Now, they made some trades for Sonny Gray and Wilson Contreras.
No, but certainly they're not done, AJ. They need one more bat. Yes.
Exactly. So here's my question. You brought him up earlier, and we've discussed him with Jim Bowden yesterday, and we talked about him a lot. Freddie Peralta for $8 million. The Orioles, you mentioned him with the Orioles. The Yankees, the Mets, the Dodgers, all these teams, like pretty much every team except the Brewers would take Freddie Peralta at 1 year, $8 million. Where do you think he ends up, and what kind of haul can he get?
Well, the Brewers would take him at 1 year, $8 million too.
Well,
and
yeah.
They're comfortable with him in that salary range. And actually, while all the big market teams seem to be in on him, there are small market teams as well that can certainly afford Freddie Peralta at $8 million and are at least in contact with the Brewers. I would expect that if he is traded, and I do believe he will be traded, I said that on Fair Territory yesterday, I believe, then they will get in excess of what they acquired for Corbin Burns. And remember, that was Joey Ortiz, who was their starting shortstop last year. Admittedly, not a good offensive player. DL Hall, a lefty with still some promise, and a draft pick that has not panned out for them just yet. But the reason Peralta is even more attractive than Burns, he might not be quite as accomplished, of course, but he's making half as much money as Burns was. And at the end of the season, if you like him, you can hit him with a qualifying offer and then get one of the prospects back as draft pick compensation. So maybe he won't get as much as Burns. Maybe I overstated that, but I can see where he could bring them even more. And the price of the salary, the cost is the reason for that. He's so much cheaper and you do get the pick back. So that was the case with Burns too, but I just think that Freddie Peralta, if he goes, he's going to go for a nice haul for the Brewers.
Ken, I don't know if you use memes when you send text to people, but the meme where the guy's just eating popcorn, is there more of a apropos meme for the Mets? Like, everybody just wants to see what the Mets are doing because they didn't sign these stars. They had their issues last year. What is happening with the Mets, and what has to happen for this to be a successful offseason, besides make the playoffs, I guess?
They need more offense. They need starting pitching. And they are more comfortable with their team than perhaps those of us on the outside might think. And I believe at one point, after they lost Alonso and Diaz, I wrote something or referred to something that Fangraphs had, that their combined WAR, projected combined WAR, is like 7th in the majors, which isn't bad. It's a playoff team, most likely, even with the players that they have. But starting pitching is certainly something that they're looking at, but they don't want to go long-term on any of the free agents, any of the remaining free agents. A lot of teams seem to be in agreement with them on that. So I don't know that you can fault them for that position. And then the question is, do they get another bat as well? And they've been linked to Bellinger, and that's really interesting, the dynamic that's going on right now with the two New York teams and Bellinger. And that would be a great fit for them. Cody Bellinger is kind of a great fit for every team because of his defensive versatility. But I don't know how it ends up for them. I don't know how hard they're going to draw the line on some of these salaries. And I don't know exactly how they see themselves compared to how we see them. And yes, they have a higher opinion than the outside world does, but I don't believe that they see themselves as anything close to complete. So I would expect one more starting pitcher at the very least and some other offensive addition beyond what they have.
Ken, what about the NL West? The Dodgers, obviously Edwin Diaz, huge pickup for them with their bullpen troubles, and they still won the World Series. Are they done? And then what about the Padres and the Diamondbacks? Is Ketel Marte going to be traded? Are the Padres going to actually have any money to spend, or is Preller going to have to do his wheeling and dealing and make 22 trades to end up with a completely different roster by opening day?
All right, I'll start right there because I can see that happening with Preller, making a number of trades and having a different roster. Now, I don't know what that's going to look like, but we reported earlier in the offseason that they were talking to the Mets, and I'm presuming other teams as well, about any number of players. Pivetta is in play. Cronenworth is in play. Morejón is in play. Mason Miller has been in play. So yes, I can see them doing any number of things to just kind of reshuffle where they are, maybe get some more control in their rotation because that's an issue for them. Pivetta and Michael King both can leave after this year. So that's the Padres. The Diamondbacks, as we wrote and as Mike Hazen, their general manager, has indicated, are getting ready to move on from the Marte talks. Now, that doesn't mean it's over because a phone call could occur at any time and suddenly the Marte situation or the trade talks are back on. But from every indication so far, from every vibe they're sending out, that's almost over. Then the question for me becomes, okay, how serious are they for Bregman if they still have Ketel Marte on their roster? I was told earlier in the offseason they could do both, but they really need to address their pitching and bullpen in particular. So I don't know exactly how all that would work. And then there are the Dodgers. And the Dodgers, as we wrote, they are a team that their own people say like to hang around the backboard. And what does that mean? Well, if something falls to them at a price that they like, they're there. So they cannot be ruled out on anything. That would include a trade for Tarik Skubal. It would include a pursuit of Kyle Tucker. Nothing is out of reach for them if it becomes a situation where a trade or a free agent signing becomes, in their mind, worth the acquisition cost. Might not happen with any of these guys. But with Edwin Diaz, what happened? Well, they found a closer that they liked because the 3-year deal for them they thought was reasonable and something that they could do.
All right, we've hit on Peralta trade. We've hit on Marte trade. You can't bring up trades without bringing up Tarik Skubal. Is there a chance? I guess there's always a chance. Anybody can be traded. But are the talks still open? And does that, obviously, that would shape what the Tigers do the rest if they do trade him or they don't trade him.
The talks are always going to be open. No team is ever willing to shut the door because if you shut the door, then the possibility of another team coming at you and saying, well, what about this? And it's this overwhelming deal. You're not going to close that option out. From the beginning of the offseason, it has certainly sounded like the Tigers' ask for Tarik Skubal is very high, as it should be, even though it's only 1 year of control, and it has seemed unlikely. Now, that said, again, once Valdez and Suarez are off the board, in particular, but maybe even right now, there are going to be teams pounding the Tigers and saying, okay, what about this? What about this? Can you do that? I expect that to continue, maybe right up to the start of spring training, maybe even beyond that. But it's still going to take such a high price that I don't know that it will ever get done.
I have to ask this about some of the smaller market, quote, smaller market teams, the Pirates and the A's. All of a sudden, they're spending money. Did they find money somewhere? Or is this the collective bargainings coming up? We need to show teams that we actually, and the players that we can spend money because the A's are trying to sign these guys to extensions. The Pirates are, imagine this, actually signing legitimate free agents to help with their pitching staff. What the heck is going on? Are we in bizarro world right now?
We are. And AJ, I've been kind of asking this question all offseason. And we wrote a story, Evan Drellick and I, early in the offseason about the Pirates and Marlins because we heard early on that suddenly they had shifted, that they were signaling to agents that, yes, we're willing to spend in free agency to a greater extent than in the past. It has come true with the Pirates, for sure. They've been on a number of pursuits and signed Ryan O'Hearn. It has come true to a lesser extent with the Marlins, who have just signed Pete Fairbanks, admittedly a good signing for them, but they haven't really gone out there in a big way for free agents. The A's are a situation where they have pledged to ramp up as they get closer to their move to Las Vegas, and they're doing that. Not maybe to the extent that we originally were told they would, but they're spending. Now, that's each individual situation. What you're asking, AJ, relative to the CBA is the question I have and the question that's been raised to me by agents and others. Okay, what's going on here? Why suddenly the shift? The Pirates, we want to build around Paul Skeens. That's ridiculous. You had Paul Skeens for 2 years now, and you did nothing with him. So why now? Is it because, as you suggested, AJ, hey, CBA negotiations are coming up, and these teams want to prove that they can spend maybe to avoid a floor? Who knows what the motivation might be? But I've learned over the years, always be suspicious of teams that shift in direction. And these teams all seem to be shifting somewhat in direction all at once. And yes, I do believe it's CBA related. I do believe maybe these teams have been told, or at least nudged in a direction where MLB is like, hey guys, we're not going to be able to make a strong case here for whatever we want to make when you're pulling this. I won't say the word I was going to use, but when you're pulling what you're pulling, put it that way.